I truly believe that the focus should be on how to create value for the customers and in the long run, how to create value for the company.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Insurance Telematics podcast. Today, we're diving into a topic which insurers often struggle with, which is how to actually implement a telematics product successfully. And I'm joined again with Harald, the CEO and founder of Dolphin Technologies. How are you, Harald?
I'm fine. Thank you very much. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Can I already ask you some questions?
Sure, shoot.
So why do insurers even implement telematics?
So they normally want to, let's say, improve something. They want to improve one ratio. So they want to reduce claims frequency. They want to increase customer lifetime. They want to engage a new demographic group. So this is the underlying, or it should be the underlying desire when you start thinking about implementing a telematics product.
So let's talk implementation. What does the ideal process look like?
Well, I see it like when you're building a house. When you're building a house, you need to address what you really want. You need to understand what is your family situation. So you have kids. Do you have pets? Do you want a balcony, a terrace, a garden? Do you want a pool? Do you want how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms? So you need to describe what an ideal world looks for your ideal house looks like, or your apartment looks like. But what you're not doing is you're not going into the details of technology. So you're not talking about material of plumbing. You're not talking about material of construction. You're basically staying, let's say, understanding who's the owner of the problem. So what do I want or of the desire, and let the professionals do the solution. So this is my approach. You should be able to formulate what you want, what you're trying to achieve, what your strategic goals are, and not, let's say, go into the technical details.
So it's about setting clear strategy with the goals and priorities, which then the insurer can share with the telematics provider.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's move on. I have a question about, I can imagine that insurers, when they see all the possible options you get to do with telematics, they get quite excited and they want to implement all the possible features, because at the end of the day, there are really amazing features which you can add with telematics. Is this something you would recommend doing, for example, implementing all at once, or rather keeping it lean and slowly scaling the product over time?
I'm a big fan of setting priorities. I'm a big fan of creating a clean customer experience. And what you should do, in my opinion, is that you focus on your strategic goal and you implement exactly what is needed to achieve that goal. And to understand that if you try to please everybody, you're basically pleasing nobody. Okay, so this is really, really important. You cannot address everybody with a telematics product. You will have customers who don't like it. You will have customers who don't appreciate it. You will have customers who don't understand it, but that's okay. You need to build a group of fans, and it's totally fine if this is 10, 15, 20, 30% of your portfolio, because I truly believe if you try to please 100%, you're pleasing nobody.
I have a follow-up question regarding more the technological aspect of things. As you mentioned earlier, insurers do tend to ask a lot of tech-related questions. Should this be a very important part of implementing the telematics solution? Or should this rather be I wouldn't say the most essential part, but rather a side of the other important factors to consider?
Yeah, so when we participate in tenders and we look at the tenders, we mostly discovered that about 80% of the questions are technology related, and 20% of the questions are really value related. So we believe it should be the opposite, because the technology part is relatively, let's say, not simple, but you can outsource it to your telematics provider, right? I truly believe that the focus should be on how to create value for the customers, and in the long run, how to create value for the company. So I give you an example. I want to address a new demographic. Let's say I want to address young drivers. And I'm saying this because many telematics programs aim for that demographic. So what I want to select good drivers. I don't want to have the reckless young drivers. I want to have the good ones. And there are a lot of them. So about 70-80% of young drivers are actually very good drivers, and they're very, let's say, very careful. And then obviously you have these outliers that create, let's say, a higher claims frequency in this demographic. So what you could do, do, for example, a try before you buy product. So show me how good driver you are, right? Or you could go for a campaign where it's actually cool to be a safe driver, right? So this is an option. So to understand that the clear strategic goal is, I want to address young drivers. This is my benefit with a low frequency as an insurance company. And on the other side, I'm giving a benefit for young drivers to saying, hey, we believe you that you're a good driver and you deserve a good premium. So we give you the option to actually prove that you're a good driver. So have a clear story that you can tell, and then everything works out.
So have a clear strategy with priorities, with goals, and then we can help you do that since we have the technology.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let us apply the tools based on your strategic goals.
And from your experience, is it rather an iterative and consultative process implementing a telematics solution, or is it more a straightforward process with insurers?
It's highly iterative. It's highly iterative. There is this strange situation that I always face when selling technology, is that, think of the following. You are hiring a new person for a new position. And let's say it's a high potential. It's a great person. They have great enthusiasm, etc. You are not expecting this person to work perfectly from day zero, right?
Yeah.
This is not what you're expecting. You need to help the person to become part of the culture of the company, become part of the team, explain the tools, explain the processes, get to know the customers, get to know the products and services, etc. So there's an iterative process. So it's not that you put the person and the person is perfect from day one. In technology, it should be the same way, right? Because we can apply knowledge from, let's say, now 30 plus insurance companies we're working with. But demographics are different. You as an insurance company, you're different. You have your specific tone of voice. You're addressing a specific demographic. You're in a specific geographic region. You're in a specific cultural, let's say, environment. So there are some things we need to fine-tune along the way. So there must not be the expectation that everything works perfect from day zero.
Yeah, of course not.
So this is important.
So I kind of want to shift to the topic of request for proposals and request for information. Can you sort of explain the difference between both to the audience, and then kind of dive deep into the common mistakes which insurers do when, for example, creating a request for information?
Yeah, I think requests for so first to an RFI, request for information, is actually to gather information, to understand what's possible, and to understand what the market offers at the moment. That's totally fine. So where every, let's say, potential provider can, let's say, communicate what they have, and they showcase, let's say, their portfolio. Let's say it becomes a little bit more tricky when we don't do the RFI first and you do the RFP immediately. The RFP, the request for proposal, sometimes is a mix between the RFI and the RFP. And what I mean with this is you have not defined what your strategic goals are. You have not defined what kind of technology you want to use. So you didn't set, let's say, the blocks, or you didn't set, let's say, the environment. And then you have different proposals with different technology, and you need to compare them. So for me, a request for proposals should be aiming for comparing similar offerings. So I already know what I want. Whilst in the RFI, I'm still investigating how could I solve my problem. What I believe is really important, that even before a request for information, you should be very aware of what you want to achieve, and to communicate this to the providers. And back to the RFP, what we're often seeing is like the vast majority of questions are technical, and only a fraction is, let's say, about customer experience, customer
Added
retention,
value.
added value, etc. So I strongly recommend to do this differently. And I want to refer back to episode 5 we did on our MOVE pilot, where we're actually giving insurance companies the opportunity to, let's say, test telematics without, let's say, a complex internal process where you need to free funds and you need to free resources, where you simply can get, let's say, build your own telematics pilot in minutes, which is really important because then you really have the opportunity to focus on the things that matter and not on the things that don't matter.
Yeah. So insurers have the opportunity with the MOVE pilot to test out the tech aspect and kind of have all their answers, all their questions answered, so that then they can shift their focus to the more important strategic goals and added value.
Absolutely. Because in many cases, insurance companies in such a process, they hire consultants.
Yeah.
So what consultants tend to do is they want to quantify results. So I give you an example that we see in, let's say, every other RFP is the question, what is the sample frequency of GPS points? Okay, so
I don't know.
So what that means is, in reality, what they want to express, how often do you ask the smartphone for a geographic location? So how precise is the path you can build for the customer? So this seems to make sense. And it seems that the higher the sample frequency, the more points you get, the better you are. That would be the quantifiable. But it's actually not true. It's actually an absolute vanity metric because, first of all, the more location points you get, the more you drain the user's battery, which is an extremely important point, right? You need to look for a good customer experience, and a good customer experience in a smartphone telematics application is that you never drain the battery of the customer.
Yeah.
So let me break that down. So if somebody is going a straight line, let's say a straight road, okay? And you're not changing direction and you're not changing speed. I don't need 1 point every second, which is the highest sample frequency the smartphone provides. And by the way, it's never a GPS location, but it's a location information because smartphones use multiple sources for location. It's not only global positioning system from NASA, but it's also GLONASS, it can be EGNOS, it could be Galileo, it could be Wi-Fi signals, etc. So the phone itself is already aggregating, let's say, different sources of location means. So the highest sample frequency is 1. So in this case, I don't have to take 1 point per second. It's not necessary. I can take a point every 10 seconds or every 20 seconds because I can reverse engineer, let's say, every point because I didn't change direction and didn't change speed. So it's very easy mathematically to understand where I was at which point of time. So it's really important that you don't get tricked by consultants that push you for technical questions because in most cases, they really don't make so much sense.
And the best way to not fall into this trap of falling into too technically deep questions is to set your priorities and really follow the customer experience and lay it out and have a clear strategy with goals, if I'm correct.
You're correct. And bring somebody on board who really has a profound knowledge of the technology. I mean, telematics sounds easy. So it's like collecting points and interpreting, let's say, driving behavior. But we are trained in smartphone technology. We're trained in information technology. We're trained in data science. We're trained in behavioral economics. We are trained in insurance, in hardware technology like radio signals like Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. So it's a very holistic knowledge. And if you don't know, and the problem is you don't know what you don't know. If you don't know to ask the right question, you're missing the point. Let me tell you a story. We had another telematics provider and we were discussing, and they told us about one of their customers where they needed to actually provide quality of service levels on how quickly will the smartphone pick up that a person is driving. And they were like very keen, and they were playing with seconds, etc. And they were putting a lot of effort in there. But this telematics provider didn't have marketing automation or automatic messages implemented. So, and if you're an expert in telematics, you know that by far the most common support case, and we're talking about 90%, is that customers revoke permissions. So customers revoke the app to get your location, etc. So if you're not focused on things that matter, but you focus on granular vanity metrics that don't matter, you're completely missing the point. And of course, what you said before, customer experience, behavioral economics, understanding incentives. It's so important. I can give you another example, which is I give you two. One is we had a product at that, let's say, long ago at a time where we still had the black box in the car, and one of the service was to locate your vehicle. So what we did is, and actually our backend knows where the vehicle is, right? So we know all the time. So you press the button and showed the location. So actually the customer experience became much better, and the customer satisfaction went much higher when we let the customer a little bit wait, and we had like a rotating satellite, and it was like random, I guess between 3 and 7 seconds, and only then showed the location. Because let's say the perceived value of the customer was, wow, I press a button and then they do everything, right? They launch a satellite network, and it's like James Bond-like, and then they locate live my car. So this is where you can implement, and this is what we call gamification, where you implement something that is not harming, let's say, the result, because you will see your location of your car, and it doesn't matter if you see it 2 seconds or 3 seconds later, but you're making the customer very happy. So this is one important thing. And I forgot the second example, but I'm sure it will come back over time.
It's fine, no worries. Thank you for sharing all these examples with us. Are there any final tips you would like to share with us before we move on to recapping the most important points that we learned throughout this episode?
I think keeping it simple is really important, right? Making the customer clearly understand what is the proposition, and don't mix propositions. So for example, if I want to build something that aims for the safety on the road for young people, okay? So I build a product where I set the stage for addressing parents, because parents in many cases are the ones who are paying for, and who are just selecting the insurance company. So if I want to tell the parent, hey, other insurance companies pay for a damage when it occurs, but in our case, we're coaching your kid, and we're giving warnings based on location, based on environmental circumstances, etc. Like the example we had in one of the previous episodes, like wildlife crossing, let's say getting more when we switch from daytime, day savings times back and forth, like more kids on the road on Halloween, etc. So, and probably also using automatic impact detection. So when we help in case of emergency. So I wouldn't mix this safety and we care about your kid. I wouldn't mix this so much with implementing a game, right? Because it devalues the actual proposition of the product. So understand what you're aiming for. And this is what I said in the beginning is you need to prioritize. And if you're prioritizing everything, you're basically prioritizing nothing. And you cannot please everybody, because when you're we try to please everybody, you please nobody. So have an edge. Have the, let's say, be courageous and not please everybody, right? Understand who's your demographic and build a great product for them.
So it's always better to keep it lean and scalable and see telematic solutions as more an iterative process and a consultative process, rather than implementing all features at once and not really having a set and clear strategy and priorities.
Absolutely. I mean, do 2 or 3 things right, then try to do 10 things and do them mediocre, right? Just have the courage to not offering everything at once, but just be, let's say, evolutionary. Let's say add features, see how your customers react. use A/B testing, use the tools available, use marketing automation to learn, use data. Always use data. You get so much information from telematics products. You see exactly how users use your app, learn, and apply things that work and delete the things you don't need. And always think about that it's not the app. The app, or let's say the telematics product per se, is only part of the story. There is the communication around, there's the value proposition, there's the marketing automation that gives you the right messages. So there's so much work around it. And it's never that you do the product and it's there and then it's there forever, but it's a continuous process.
Thanks for sharing this last point with us. Can we recap the main points of this episode?
Absolutely. You need to help me.
Okay, so I'll tell you what I've learned. I've learned that it's always important to set a clear strategy and have clear goals and clear priorities before really going in and launching a request for information or a request for proposal. And I have also learned that it's better to keep the product lean and scalable rather than launching all features at once. Do you want to go ahead and add one more point or two?
Yes. Get a pro on board. Get somebody on board who really helps you and who is really skilled in doing this.
And ask the right questions.
Yeah, and have them ask the right questions. Okay, not everything that you is seemingly quantifiable actually adds value and gives you an understanding of better or worse. But sometimes it's the contrary. So work with professionals and let them help you, and that's basically the most important point.
Great. Thank you so much for watching this episode. And please feel free to subscribe to our channel and reach out to us and leave us some feedback as well.